Breaking tonight as we come on the air, President Trump announcing he has commuted George Santos' sentence. The imprisoned former congressman now walking free. The disgraced New York U.S. representative serving 7 years on fraud charges. The president posting, quote, "Good luck, George. Have a great life." What we're learning about the shocking decision tonight. Also breaking, President Trump and Ukrainian President Zelenskyy coming face to face once again. The Ukrainian leader making his cases for Tomahawk missiles, saying President Trump has a big chance to finish the war. What we're learning and the new details about how the president's previous summit with Putin went off the rails. Also tonight, the newest strike in the Caribbean with a shocking twist. 2 people on board survived, now in custody. The president saying they were on a submarine, and his new threat to Venezuela's president. Royal no more, Prince Andrew giving up his royal titles as he faces new questions about his ties to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The king's response tonight. Caught on camera, a new video showing burglars ransacking homes in California. The sophisticated tech they're using in a string of break-ins. New questions swirling after a billionaire fashion mogul fell to his death on a hike. Why Spanish media is now reporting his son went from witness to now suspect. Tagging shoplifters, the UK's new move to crack down on retail theft, strapping GPS ankle monitors on serial offenders. Plus, not a single hurricane has made landfall this season for the first time in a decade. So why do they keep turning away from the East Coast? Top story starts right now. Good evening. We begin tonight on this Friday with that breaking news. Disgraced former Congressman George Santos expected soon to walk free after President Trump commuted his sentence. Santos reported to prison this summer to start serving his more than 7-year sentence after pleading guilty to a long list of federal charges, including fraud, ID theft, and money laundering. He's been behind bars now for just over 2 months. But the president posting moments ago, quote, "I just signed a commutation releasing George Santos from prison immediately. Good luck, George. Have a great life." The president's decision coming after an appeal for clemency from multiple friends and allies of Santos, as well as a letter from Santos himself, according to a senior White House official. NBC's Gabe Gutierrez has been following it all. He joins us from the White House tonight. Gabe, what more are we learning about this?
Hey there, Tom. Well, yes, the senior White House official does tell NBC News that the president has heard from multiple friends and allies of Santos asking for clemency. And then, yes, you mentioned that letter from Santos. The president had read it, Santos describing his conditions in prison. Now, Santos began his 7-year federal prison sentence this summer after pleading guilty in April to charges of aggravated identity theft and wire fraud. Now, the Republican became a household name shortly after he was elected to Congress in 2022. That's when the New York Times reported several lies he told about his backstory during his congressional campaign. Now, tonight, the president writing George Santos was somewhat of a rogue, but there are many rogues throughout our country that aren't forced to serve 7 years in prison, adding at least Santos had the courage, conviction, and intelligence to always vote Republican. Tom, as you mentioned, he said, "I just signed the commutation releasing Santos from prison immediately. Good luck, George. Have a great life." He also said that he had seen the story of Richard Blumenthal, the senator from Connecticut, when Blumenthal clashed after Blumenthal had clashed with Attorney General Pam Bondi during a congressional hearing. Blumenthal had previously apologized for misleading statements about his military service. The president saying that what Blumenthal did was far worse than what George Santos did, Tom.
Got it. All right. Gabe Gutierrez leading us off from the White House. Gabe, thanks. I want to bring in NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos, one of our legal eagles. Danny, President Trump said that in the Truth Social post that Santos was to be released immediately. What can we expect now? How long does it take to get him out of prison?
No, commutation is not the same as a pardon. It's all under the umbrella of what's called clemency, executive clemency. The president can erase someone's conviction with a pardon, or he can commute their sentence, which just cuts it short. He can make it as long or as short as he likes. And what he's effectively done is open the prison cell doors to allow Santos out. So really from this point, it's a matter of getting the commutation paperwork delivered to BOP, Bureau of Prisons, and then getting him processed and getting him out. But he remains convicted of the crime. Commutation is a less controversial option for a president than a pardon, which undoes everything the DOJ did to get the defendant or the offender convicted in the first place.
All right, so explain that for me, right? Just break it down. The commutation is essentially what? Get out of jail free?
Exactly right. It is a shortening of the sentence. When you think of the pardon power, which includes clemency and all the powers of either reducing a sentence or eliminating the conviction to begin with, this is one of the broadest powers given to the president under the Constitution. It's unreviewable. In other words, you can't go to court and say, this was a bad pardon. Once issued, it is over. And so because of that broad scope of power, the president has a lot of options. He could have erased Santos's conviction. He chose not to. Instead, he did what's called a commutation. He simply shortened the sentence, and you can shorten it and keep the person in prison for another couple years. But Santos was sentenced to 87 months. That's a lot of time, a lot more than the 2 months that he served. So effectively, he's ending the sentence, but the conviction remains.
The pardon power is something the president has. Is it usual to see them happen like this during random times in the presidency? You usually see them towards the end of it, right? Right before a president gets out?
Great question, Tom. You're so right. Pardons are often controversial because by definition, they're undoing a lot of work and money spent by DOJ, and technically they're letting a guilty person go free, at least somebody who has been adjudicated guilty. So they're often controversial, whether it's Bill Clinton pardoning his half-brother Roger Clinton. There are plenty of examples on both sides of pardons and commutations being highly controversial. And for that reason, presidents normally wait until they're on the way out the door so as to minimize the blow. And since they're not running for re-election, then there's less harm. But Trump is unusual in that he sort of issues pardons and commutations along the way when he sees fit, when the feeling strikes him.
All right, Danny Savalas for us. Danny, we appreciate it. Now to our other major headline tonight, the breaking news in two different regions of the world. Major developments today on the war in Ukraine and new details in that strike reported last night on an alleged drug vessel off Venezuela. That attack, the latest in a string of similar attacks like these. But this time, there were two survivors. Two U.S. officials telling NBC News at least two people who were on that boat lived through the attack and are now in custody. They're also saying that boat is an underwater vessel. The assault on alleged drug traffickers off Venezuela coming as the president pursues an end to the violence in Ukraine. Trump hosting President Zelenskyy at the White House today, pressing both sides to stop fighting. Garrett Haake has more on that high-stakes meeting today at the White House.
From the moment his meeting with Ukraine's President Zelenskyy began,
do you believe you can convince Vladimir Putin to end the war in Ukraine?
President Trump striking an optimistic tone he can bring an end to the Ukraine war as he prepares for a second summit with Russia's Vladimir Putin.
This should be one that we get done. And I think the table is set properly here now, too. And it'll be a great honor.
Zelenskyy praising President Trump's Mideast ceasefire deal, suggesting it's a good sign.
My congratulations with your successful ceasefire in the Middle East.
Thank you.
I think this is the momentum to finish Russia's war against Ukraine.
I think we carry a lot of momentum, a lot of credibility. Getting Middle East done was very important. Nobody thought it could be done.
Though President Trump non-committal on Zelenskyy's request for U.S. Tomahawk missiles.
We need Tomahawks, and we need a lot of other things that we've been sending over the last 4 years to Ukraine. Hopefully they won't need it. Hopefully we'll be able to get the war over with without thinking about Tomahawks.
Saying he'll speak with Zelenskyy after his Putin meeting.
We have to get together. It's a very small group of people. It's the president, and the president. Okay, 3 presidents. And I'm the mediator president. And I'm mediating not an easy situation.
It comes as we're learning about tensions inside President Trump's Alaska summit with Putin this summer. Putin rejected President Trump's ceasefire proposal, delivering what a source familiar with the meeting told NBC News was a rambling historical speech. A surprise Trump raised his voice several times and even threatened to walk out, the source said. Today, the president was asked if he was concerned Putin was trying to buy more time.
Yeah, I am, but, you know, I've been played all my life by the best of them, and I came out really well. So it's possible, yeah, a little time.
Is your gut instinct?
It's all right. But I think that I'm pretty good at this stuff. I think that he wants to make a deal.
Garrett Hake joins us tonight from the White House. Garrett, I know you have some new reporting on those Tomahawk missiles.
Yeah, Tom, look, the president is clearly skeptical about providing those missiles to Ukraine. You could hear it in his response to questions about them today. Well, tonight, two senior White House officials tell me nothing he heard from Zelenskyy today has changed his mind. The bottom line, those officials say, is that the president believes providing Ukraine with long-range missiles would only prolong this war and make it bloodier, not bring it to a conclusion, which is what he wants to see. So he remains highly unlikely to provide Ukraine with the missiles that they've been practically begging for, Tom.
All right, Garrett Hake at the White House. Garrett, we thank you. Now to our new reporting on those U.S. strikes on boats the Trump administration says are smuggling drugs into the U.S. Tonight, new questions after two people somehow survived the latest strike are now in custody. Here's Courtney Cubie.
After a series of deadly U.S. strikes against boats the Trump administration says were smuggling drugs into the U.S., tonight we're learning the latest strike had a twist. At least two people on board survived the blast, according to two U.S. officials. U.S. Navy helicopters were overhead and a boat picked them up, the officials said. They remain in U.S. custody tonight. President Trump describing the strike.
We attacked a submarine, and that was a drug-carrying submarine built specifically for the transportation of massive amounts of drugs, just so you understand. This was not an innocent group of people. I don't know too many people that have submarines.
The president appearing to reference a semi-submersible like this one that authorities say cartels use to smuggle drugs. This is the sixth boat the U.S. military has struck in international waters, killing at least 29 people, according to the Trump administration. Though some in Congress are questioning whether the strikes are legal.
And we're undertaking these operations against narco-terrorists. That's what these are.
The U.S. considers Venezuela's authoritarian leader Nicolas Maduro illegitimate. President Trump was asked about reports Maduro had offered the U.S. a stake in Venezuela's natural resources.
He's offered everything. You're right. You know why? Because he doesn't want to around with the United States.
All right, with that, Courtney Cubie joins us tonight live from D.C. Courtney, I know you have some new reporting after the surprise retirement of the admiral who ran U.S. Southern Command overseeing these strikes off Venezuela.
Yeah, that's right. He is Admiral Alvin Halsey, and he's commander of all the U.S. military in Central and South America. And he surprised everyone by stepping down yesterday, putting a statement on social media, but not providing any reason for why he was retiring after decades in the military, but notably less than 1 year in this current position. It's usually a 3-year job. Now, U.S. officials tell NBC News that, in fact, there had been tensions between Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and Admiral Halsey in recent months, and that, in fact, Secretary Hegseth has made it clear that he thinks that the admiral is simply not aggressive enough when it comes to these strikes against the cartels in the region. Tom?
Okay, Courtney Cubie, a lot of important new reporting there. We thank you. Joining us now to break down the latest on both of those strikes off Venezuela and the war in Ukraine is Danny Davis. He's a retired Army Lieutenant Colonel and host of Daniel Davis Deep Dive. Colonel Davis, we thank you for your service and we thank you for joining us tonight. Let's start with the situation in Venezuela. We have an airstrike on a vessel with at least 2 survivors. It appears, at least from what they're telling us, it was an underwater vessel. We've seen the cartels use that. How do you think that happens, and did something wrong happen here?
Well, the biggest question is, what is the military objective? Anytime you're talking about using lethal military power to achieve national aims, you've got to have an idea what you want to accomplish and then how that is going to actually get into solving whatever the problem is you want. And in this case, the claim is there's all these illegal drugs that are coming to the United States so that we're going to interdict them. Problem with this is that when you look at where all the drugs actually come into the United States, it's not clear at all that these strikes in the Caribbean Sea near Venezuela actually had at all on the drugs coming into the United States. For example, the range of these boats wasn't anywhere near enough to get to the United States, and it's unclear what the intelligence was that allegedly that said that whatever was on those boats was going to end up going somewhere else and then taking a different route to the U.S. So if you can't draw a direct line to the lethal military action here and an objective that the U.S. can accomplish, then you have to ask, what is the purpose then? And frankly, I can't really see an attainable military objective here.
Yeah, Danny, then I do have to ask you the next question. Do you think the admiral stepping down that was in charge of the Southern Command did that because of this? Do you think it had something to do? And again, we don't have any reporting to lead that way. It's just the timing is very strange. He was 1 year into that appointment, and there's all this action in the Caribbean. He suddenly steps down.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have the slightest access to anybody over there that could really say anything other than the timing is certainly curious. And, you know, that's like the pinnacle of a career when you get a command position like that. And to walk away 1 year into a 3-year term with no comment certainly raises a lot of questions.
Let's move on now to Ukraine. And, you know, Zelenskyy essentially coming here asking for those tomahawks. And President Trump now saying it doesn't sound like he's going to give them to Ukraine. It sounds like it was a failed sort of negotiation on Zelenskyy's part. Essentially, they both want peace. And Trump's thinking, from what we understand, is that if they give them the tomahawks, it's going to prolong this war. Is the president's thinking right on that?
Well, I honestly, I don't think that it's going to make any difference. I don't think it's going to prolong at all. It may raise the cost to Russia if some of those gets through. But you need to understand that the weapons that we would even contemplate giving through are going to be some of the older Tomahawk missiles, not some of the newer and the more capable ones. We would certainly reserve those for America's use. And those are, you're talking, you know, technologies like 30, 40 years old. And Russia's air defense capabilities probably can knock the majority of those down. Maybe not all of them, but certainly a good portion of them, because they're kind of slow in modern terms. So it's not clear that they would even get through. But Russia has already said if they're used, because those weapons have the potential to carry a nuclear warhead, and you can't tell when they're fired whether it's conventional nuclear, that they said that would significantly damage the relationship, the improving relationship with the Trump administration. And in that phone call with Putin yesterday, the Russian readout said that they were eager to talk about things after this war, like the START treaty that's going to come to an expiration in February, and other business deals. So I think President Putin is saying, look, if you want to improve relations, don't do that, because it's not going to help.
All right, Colonel Davis, we thank you again for your time coming on Top Story tonight. Next tonight, President Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, made his first court appearance today. This coming after his indictment on 18 counts for allegedly mishandling classified info. NBC's Laura Jarrett has this report.
Former National Security Advisor John Bolton making his first appearance at a federal courthouse in Maryland today, pleading not guilty to charges he mishandled classified information while serving in the first Trump White House. Bolton released by the judge on the condition he turn over his passport and remain in the U.S. The longtime government official and former UN ambassador, who held high-level security clearance for years, surrendering himself to authorities early this morning, undergoing fingerprinting and a mugshot, according to a senior law enforcement official, the routine process for any other criminal defendant. A federal grand jury indicted Bolton Thursday on 18 counts of wrongly sharing sensitive and classified information with 2 family members and illegally keeping materials in his Maryland home. Advised in court today, he could face up to 10 years in prison for each count if convicted, though the ultimate sentence would be up to the judge. Bolton vowing to fight the charges, denying in the past he used any classified material for his memoir, which offers a withering portrayal of his time working for Trump, suggesting he's just the latest target of a president out for revenge against his perceived enemies.
The question is, why are these charges being brought at this time? We know that other members of the current administration have shared information on non-classified or non-governmental systems. The question is, why are the charges being brought?
But the evidence gathered by the Justice Department, the product of multiple career prosecutors following a search warrant over the summer, could prove to be an uphill battle for Bolton.
As for what comes next here, Tom, in terms of the timeline, do not expect this case to go to trial anytime soon. Cases like this involving the mishandling of classified documents, typically not one that moves fast. In fact, it could take over a year, given all the specialized hearings that have to happen first. Tom, back to you.
Okay, Laura Jarrett, always great to see you. Next tonight, Royal No More, a dramatic announcement from Prince Andrew, saying he no longer uses his royal titles. The long-embattled member of the royal family facing ongoing outrage over his ties to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. NBC's Raf Sanchez following it all for us from London.
Tonight, after years of criticism and outrage over his links to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, Prince Andrew says he's giving up the use of his official titles, including His Royal Highness and the Duke of York. He'll also stop attending royal Christmas celebrations. King Charles's younger brother writing, "In discussion with the king and my immediate and wider family, we've concluded the continued accusations about me distract from the work of His Majesty and the royal family. I vigorously deny the accusations against me." It comes ahead of the publication of an explosive autobiography by Virginia Giuffre, who says she was forced to have sex with Andrew when she was 17, after she had been trafficked by Epstein. He was friendly enough, but still entitled, as if he believed having sex with me was his birthright, Giuffre wrote, according to a book excerpt in The Guardian. Giuffre died by suicide in April.
Categorically, I don't remember meeting her at all.
After this 2019 BBC interview turned into a PR disaster, Andrew stepped back from royal duties and a lawsuit with Giuffre.
All right, Raf Sanchez joins us tonight live outside of Buckingham Palace. Raf, I know Virginia Giuffre's family has just put out a statement. What are they saying?
So, Tom, they are calling this a victory, not just for Virginia Giuffre, but for all of the victims of Jeffrey Epstein and his co-conspirators. But they are calling on King Charles to go further. They want the king to strip Andrew of his remaining title, that of prince. Not really clear the king can do that without ripping up the entire rule book. But I can tell you, Tom, it is very clear that Buckingham Palace, the royal family, had totally lost patience with Andrew and with this rolling scandal. In the hours before he made this announcement, there was fever-pitch speculation in the British media that if Andrew didn't voluntarily give up those other titles, like Duke of York, that the king was going to take them away from him. And so it may very well be that Andrew felt today it was better to jump than to be pushed. Tom.
It's a good point. Okay, Raf Sanchez, thank you. We're also tracking a severe storm threat tonight back here at home, ramping up this weekend. Millions of people across the Midwest and South. Large hail, damaging winds, and even twisters. I want to get right to NBC meteorologist Bill Cairns. Bill, walk me through the severe weather and how bad it will get this weekend.
It's been a while since we've had some severe weather going across the country, and this is a very busy outdoor time. So as we go throughout your Saturday afternoon, evening, St. Louis, Dallas, Memphis, Little Rock, all the way up into areas of southern Kentucky, this is the area where we're going to have a line of storms going through. It's not going to cancel all your plans, but it will bring about an hour's worth of really nasty storms. We will get power outages out of this, too. By the time we get to Sunday, that's when we're going to be watching this storm system heading to the Great Lakes. Not quite as strong. There's an NFL game being played in Cleveland. It's going to be very windy and very wild for that Dolphins-Browns game. The rest of the areas of Pennsylvania also, Tom, isolated strong storms, too.
All right, and I want to talk the tropics, right, because we're in the thick of hurricane season, and for the first time in a decade, which is great news, we've had no hurricane make U.S. landfall. Every storm that has threatened the East Coast, it feels like, turns abruptly back out to sea, so the big question tonight is why?
Yeah, so we went into the season thinking it was going to be another active hurricane season. It's been more closer to kind of average. So here's a map showing you all the storms that we've been tracking throughout this hurricane season. You notice one thing quickly. We've had any action in the Gulf and the Caribbean Sea, almost none. We've had about 4 hurricanes out there, and you can see the tracks here, the red lines. And as Tom was mentioning, they've all kind of approached the East Coast and then made this turn off the coast. And here's the reason why. And you probably noticed it as we went through the end of summer. It wasn't that humid, the eastern half of the country, as is typical for August and September. Your heating bills were probably, your AC bills were probably a lot lower than normal. And we can thank that Canadian cool, dry air for shoving and pushing all these storms. And the reason the Gulf hasn't had any storms either, high pressure overhead, that sinking air, you need rising thunderstorms to get storms. So we've been very fortunate this year, and another couple weeks to go, and then we'll be in the clear.
All right. Thank you for that. We're back in a moment with the search for a missing woman in Philadelphia, the chilling new video of the suspect and how investigators are linking him, look how scary this video is, to a different kidnapping case. Plus, new developments in the death of a billionaire fashion tycoon, why his son has allegedly gone from a witness to a suspect. Plus, the heart-pounding video as an officer pulls a driver from a burning car. That rescue straight ahead. We are back now with the urgent search for a 23-year-old Philadelphia woman, now missing for 2 weeks. Tonight, new video of the suspect in that case emerging. Prosecutors say it shows the moment he allegedly kidnapped and assaulted a different woman. Emily Aketa has the latest on the investigation.
2 weeks after 23-year-old Kata Scott went missing, chilling video surfacing of the suspect in her disappearance.
Go away, don't come over here.
Prosecutors in Philadelphia say this is Keon King, shortly before he kidnapped and assaulted a different woman earlier this year.
It's all these kids in here. Call the cops.
The Philadelphia District Attorney's Office says that case had been withdrawn after the victim and witness repeatedly failed to appear in court. But the office is now refiling those charges, along with kidnapping and related offenses in the disappearance of Scott, who went missing shortly after arriving at work at a senior living facility on October 4th, according to investigators. They say Scott and King have known each other for a short time.
He was the last person with her. He was traveling with her when her phone goes offline. We have every reason to believe at this point she did not go willingly.
This week, Keon King turned himself in to police. The next day, investigators canvassing with drones and dogs found items believed to belong to the missing woman near an abandoned middle school, and later towed away King's damaged vehicle from an apartment complex. NBC News reached out to King's attorney for comment, while 23-year-old Kata Scott's loved ones wait for answers in agony.
We have no idea at all, like, where she is, where she could be. We love her. I just pray that she's safe.
Officials say they believe there may have been other victims of King, tonight encouraging them to come forward.
All right, Emily Aketa joins us now live in studio. So, Emily, do we know what King's current status is besides, turning himself in? Is he in jail?
Yeah, that's right. He is currently being held on a $2.5 million bond, and that is something that the DA really underscored today in sending that message for any potential victims to come forward, because he noted that earlier this year, King, in that other kidnapping case, was able to post bond, and he believes that was part of the reluctance from the witness, from the victim, and showing up to court. They're saying that they are seeing a clear pattern in King's behavior, and it's a disturbing one at that.
Okay, Emily Aketa, we thank you for that. Coming up, troop deployment escalation. The Trump administration to allow National Guard troops to deploy in Chicago, what we're learning. And the scene straight out of a horror movie, 3 people in Halloween masks. Look at this. Scaring a homeowner, the creepy moments caught on a doorbell cam. But first, top stories, top moment. This will make you smile. From helping the Eagles score touchdowns to singing scores, offensive tackle Jordan Mailata may just do it all. The Eagle player has been recognized as one of the best offensive linemen in the league, but it's his performance off the field at the Philly Music Fest that is getting attention. Take a look. Well, if you couldn't tell, he was belting out the song Valerie there. It isn't Mailata's first time singing publicly. He was also featured on a Philly special Christmas album with Jason Kelce. All right, stay with us. More news on the way. We're back now with the investigation to the death of a fashion mogul. Last year, the founder of the Spanish retailer Mango died after falling off a cliff during a hike with his son. At the time, it was ruled an accident, but now Spanish media is reporting his son has gone from witness to suspect. NBC's George Solis on how his family is now fighting back those reports.
Tonight, new questions surrounding the investigation on the death of fashion mogul Isak Anding, the billionaire founder and president of European fashion retailer Mango, as his family responds to Spanish media reports that his death is now being considered a possible homicide. The 71-year-old died last December while on a hike with his son Jonathan in the mountains on a popular hiking trail in Barcelona, falling more than 300 feet from a cliff into a ravine. In a statement shared that day, the company referring to his death as an accident. Today, his family releasing a statement to Reuters saying his 44-year-old son Jonathan will be proven innocent after anonymously sourced reports in 2 Spanish papers say his phone has been turned over to police investigating the death. We reached out to Spanish authorities handling the case, but did not hear back. Barcelona's court press office telling Reuters they are not looking at any one individual.
Los principios de Mango Man.
The 44-year-old was previously the global director of Mango Man, a clothing line that expected to end the year with $376 million in sales, stepping down this June to focus on the company's assets, now serving as vice chairman of the board. He followed in his father's footsteps.
Use this as a platform for the young designers all over the world.
The company saying their late founder left a legacy of inspiring leadership and unwavering commitment to values. Tonight, a fashion family dynasty under the microscope. George Solis, NBC News.
Okay, time now for Top Stories news feed, and we start with the devastating flooding in Alaska. The state's governor says the damage is so bad that many evacuees won't be able to return home for at least a year and a half. More than 2,000 people have been displaced by those catastrophic floods that destroyed homes in the western part of the state. Hundreds of people have been airlifted to Anchorage on military planes, with more flights expected tomorrow. All right, President Trump asking the Supreme Court to allow National Guard troops to be deployed in Illinois. The Trump administration says the troops are needed to protect agents conducting immigration enforcement. The government arguing the agents have been threatened and assaulted in the city. The move coming after lower courts blocked the effort because they found no credible evidence that there is a danger of rebellion in the state. And new doorbell cam video, and it's a straight horror film if you think about it. Footage shows 3 people in Halloween masks pounding on a family's home in Alexandria, Virginia. The homeowners say the terrifying trio also shouted threats and tried to break in through multiple doors and windows. Alexandria police are investigating the incident and asked the public for their help identifying the suspects. A daring rescue caught on camera in Texas as a police officer pulls a woman from a burning car. New body cam video showing flames engulfing the car as a woman screams inside. Then you can see the officer pulling open the door and dragging her to safety. The woman hurt her leg, but she's expected to be okay. Okay, time now for Power and Politics in the race for New York City mayor, where 33-year-old Democratic Socialist Zohran Mamdani has a commanding lead in the polls. Mamdani has become a national figure and is already clashing with President Trump. Here's Sam Brock with an update post-debate.
Tonight, Zohran Mamdani is the clear frontrunner in the race for New York City mayor.
Excited. Feeling good?
With the latest poll showing the Democratic Socialist leading his closest competitor, former Governor Andrew Cuomo, by more than 20 points. But his fiercest opponent may not even be in this race, with Mamdani now a frequent target of President Trump.
I wouldn't be generous to a communist, a guy that's going to take the money and throw it out the window.
If he ever wants to come for New Yorkers in the way that he has been, he's going to have to get through me as the next mayor of the city.
Last night, the New York State Assemblyman facing off in a debate against Cuomo, who's running as an independent, and Republican Curtis Sliwa. In a race getting attention from all over the world, Mamdani pressed about a Fox News interview this week where he declined to answer whether Hamas should lay down arms after heavy criticism, sharpening his answer.
Of course, I believe that they should lay down their arms.
The 33-year-old has gone from relative unknown to household name, with his message about improving affordability appealing to many New Yorkers, but also prompting questions about his political resume.
He has no experience. He literally has never had a job.
What I don't have in experience, I make up for in integrity. And what you don't have in integrity, you could never make up for in experience.
Yeah. Both candidates making the case for why they're the right person to push back on the president if he deploys the National Guard in New York.
Why would that not happen under your administration?
I wouldn't let him.
But how would you prevent it? What stopped him before?
Well, he sent the National Guard into 20 cities when I was governor. He didn't send them into New York.
What it has to do with is intimidation. That's what this is about. And we need a mayor who's not too busy coordinating with Donald Trump to actually fight back.
Okay, Sam Brock with us. Sam, we were just talking about the piece in the debate. Question for you. Do people see Mamdani, if he wins, as the future of the Democratic Party? I should remind our viewers here, a party that is looking for a leader right now.
I think that is an excellent point, right? The Democratic Party is clearly reckoning with what they stand for. A couple of takeaways from this. Around Mamdani, Tom has really struck a feeling, right? Democrats have a tendency to intellectualize or theorize things. He struck a feeling that there's intense pressure on the working class. They feel like they can't get ahead, and that rising costs aren't being felt in Washington. That's a real thing. By the same token, the clock is already ticking on the midterm elections, right? And you have Democrats in swing districts that are fearful of what this will mean, and you have Republicans, specifically MAGAverse, that are very excited at the prospect of attaching Mamdani to basically the standard bearer of the Democratic Party because of the perception that some of his positions are outside of the mainstream. And this was highlighted by Cuomo last night. Things like comments he's made about police and defunding the police that he's apologized to the rank and file for and has moderated since. Comments regarding globalizing the intifada and not condemning that language, something that offended a lot of Jewish Americans. And he's had conversations, he says, with the Orthodox community as well. Even taxing wealthy Americans. That's not something he can unilaterally do, but it has become a talking point, right? And so the politics of some of his positions could make him a liability. They also could make him potentially something that the party wants to endorse, depending upon who you talk to. But it's all playing out before our eyes here.
All right, Sam Brock, we thank you for all that analysis. You moving west down to Los Angeles, where yet another home invasion was caught on camera. This time, thieves using walkie-talkies as they pull off their heist. Here's Liz Kreutz with more on the way burglars are breaking into homes.
It's video of another home break-in in Los Angeles, but this one different.
As an alarm goes off, you can see and hear the masked burglars communicating by what appears to be walkie-talkie, coordinating their efforts while ransacking the bedroom.
Yeah, we good? Yeah, y'all good, y'all good.
Just days later, also in broad daylight, another group casing this home in North Hollywood. 3 masked people get out and walk towards the side gate.
We believe they were watching us leave and saw us back out of our driveway.
Leah Young says her husband was still home. As he calls for police,
Call 911! Call 911!
The burglars run away.
They just got into their BMW sedan, dark tinted windows, no license plate, and sped off.
Tonight, LAPD says both videos are part of larger investigations into the spree of home robberies across LA. Many by organized gangs of thieves who officials say use high-tech tactics to track homeowners, from celebrities like Brad Pitt and Nicole Kidman, whose homes have been targeted, to everyday residents.
They're sophisticated, they're coordinated, and they're fast.
Authorities say among the tactics, hiding cameras in bushes and jamming the Wi-Fi so alarms and home ring cameras don't work.
How are these burglars deciding which homes to target?
Well, they'll see someone out, and they'll spot them as a person of means. They can follow them home. They can put an AirTag on their car.
All right, Liz Croyce joins us tonight live from L.A. So, Liz, how are city officials and residents working to prevent these types of burglaries? Because they seem to be popping up all over the country.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really been an issue here in Los Angeles, Tom, as we've been reporting on. The mayor did put out a statement today. She did say that LAPD is going to be conducting additional patrols, that they're closely monitoring this. And she pointed out that over the summer, when they did see an uptick in these crimes, they did add patrols and they also deployed license plate readers. But the issue here is broader than that. And we asked experts, what should concerned homeowners do? And they say that if you're really worried, you could install hardwired cameras around your home so that if they do jam the Wi-Fi, those cameras still work. And they also said, think about what you're wearing, the jewelry you're wearing, the car you're driving, how you're presenting yourself when you maybe go into certain areas, because he said that folks really are, some of these burglars are really watching people. And if they think you have a fancy watch, they might follow you home. Tom.
Yeah, it's terrifying when you think about it. Okay, Liz, we thank you. You still to come on top story. A new approach to cracking down on shoplifting, how police in the UK are using GPS monitors to track repeat offenders. Plus, a life-changing surprise for a dedicated school staff member. The high school volleyball team coming together to surprise their custodian with a new car. How they were able to pull a fast one on him. Stay with us. You're watching Top Story on this Friday night. We're back now with a new pilot program in the UK aimed at stopping serial shoplifters in their tracks. Police putting a GPS device on some convicted shoplifters so that they can easily track them down and hopefully deter them from shoplifting again. But some critics are skeptical that it will work. Here's Dana Griffin.
This shirtless man placing items into a shopping basket is stealing, Sussex police say, calling 41-year-old Barry Farthing a prolific shoplifter. Now among the first in the United Kingdom, forced to wear an electronic ankle tag, a new pilot program aimed at deterring repeat offenders. 50-year-old Victoria Hale has also been fitted with a GPS device for 12 months and banned from her local co-op, where officials say she has been getting a 5-finger discount. Police say between the two, they're convicted of more than 88 counts in separate shoplifting investigations.
Anybody can be a shop thief, clearly. The message we're sending is that you don't get away with it in Sussex.
NBC News has been unable to reach Hale Farthing for comment.
We're going to do an evaluation over a period of 12 months and we'll see if it works. I personally think it's going to work. And I predict that in a couple of years' time, this will be rolled out across the country.
The so-called buddy tags track offenders in real time and create no-go zones at shops where the crimes occurred.
Do you think these GPS devices really deter repeat offenders?
It depends, quite frankly, on the level of monitoring and then the follow-up if there is violation.
Across the pond, the U.S. also grappling with a surge in retail theft. According to the National Retail Federation, the U.S. saw a 93% spike in shoplifting incidents in 2023 compared to 2019. Some states like California also battling organized retail crime and smash-and-grab robberies, where surveillance videos have gone viral. In the first 7 months of this year, California making over 700 arrests, recovering nearly 150,000 stolen items valued at an estimated $8 million.
I don't think incarceration in and of itself is the answer for all offenders. Putting them in jail without providing them effective treatment is just a revolving door solution.
So whether at home or abroad, the message seems to be getting clearer. If you shoplift, you'll be seen. And now you could even be tracked. Dana Griffin, NBC News.
All right, Dana Griffin, we thank you for that. Time now for Top Stories Global Watch, and we start in Peru, where the country's new president is refusing to resign following anti-government protests led by Gen Z demonstrators. Authorities say at least one person has died and about 100 others are hurt. President Jose Yari telling reporters he's committed to helping stabilize Peru. He was just sworn in last week after the country's Congress ousted the former leader. Moving on now, a car belonging to one of Italy's leading investigative journalists exploding outside of his home. Here you can see the aftermath. Nobody was hurt, thankfully, but now Italy's anti-mafia authorities are looking into the blast. The journalist has reportedly been under police protection since 2021 because of his hard-hitting investigations. And tonight, top conservation groups meeting in Abu Dhabi to decide if scientists should be allowed to edit the genes of wild animals. The goal is to help preserve animal species and other living organisms. So far, the consensus seems to be yes. The groups voted to approve exploring the use of genetic engineering tools. Experts say it's a landmark step to help mitigate risks of climate change on animals. Okay, and a very sweet assist from a high school volleyball team back here at home. Students raising thousands of dollars to buy their custodian a car when they learned he was struggling to get to and from work, and the incredible moment they gifted him the vehicle, all captured on camera.
Watch as Abel Rodriguez walks out of this high school where he's a custodian and realizes this huge cheering crowd was there to celebrate him with an incredible gift, a car just for him.
I love you forever.
I caught up with him today.
When you found out about this, I mean, when they told you had a car and you saw it, what did you think?
Al ver el carro, pues no lo podía creer.
Abel saying once he saw the car, he couldn't believe
it. In shock.
The surprise all thanks to the volleyball team at Community High School near Dallas.
It just felt so nice to finally have been able to repay him for all that he does for us.
The players say Abel, the late shift supervisor, is their biggest supporter, even warming up with the team before tonight's game. So when they learned he didn't have a car, they swung into action.
How did you guys get this idea?
We had just always talked about how we felt like Abel deserved more than what he was getting.
To know that we could help pull this all together and give it to him was just such an amazing feeling to have.
The team raised more than $9,000, and then a local dealership jumped in.
Thank you.
To help make this emotional moment happen.
A ellas, a Yorina, gracias, Adi.
Abel thanking the girls who helped him so much and who had one more gift for him.
Is there anything you guys would like to tell him?
We care about you, Abel, and we'd do anything for you.
That does it for us tonight here on Top Story. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Tom Llamas in New York. Stay right there. More news on the way. We thank you for watching. And remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.